Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This is going over the Christmas Day slate for today on DraftKings or tomorrow whenever you're watching this video. But we got lots of good games on tap, specifically this Clippers versus Lakers game. I'm sure everyone's going to be tuning in for that game. It's got the best time slot as well at 8 p.m. Everyone did all their Christmas activities, probably had dinner, so everyone's going to sit back, watch this game. The two LA teams facing off. So I am looking forward to this slate. I'm sure you guys are as well. But before we continue, if you guys could, as always, just leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You also follow me on Twitter, ChrisPinall16. And if you're interested in spreadsheets about every single night for the NBA season, projections, my cheat sheet, defense versus position chart, values, my core plays, all that good stuff. My Discord chat as well, updated all the way up until lock. Links in the description below for my Patreon. And without further ado, I say we get right into this slate. And we're going to talk about a lot of guys on this slate, because I had some extra time, because obviously we didn't have a slate today, so lots of extra time to talk about a lot more players. So hopefully it's not too long. It shouldn't be too long. But James Harden, he's up top at 11,600, and deservedly so. He should be the most expensive player on the slate most of the time. I guess Giannis could have might have some words for that, because I think both of them are the two best fantasy players just in the NBA right now. But anyway, let's talk about James Harden. He presents us pretty much the highest ceiling on the entire slate. Giannis is right there as well, but James Harden, we know what he does. He can put up massive fantasy points every single night. This is a great matchup for Harden versus Golden State. They ranked 25th versus opposing guards this season. And I just don't see how they stop this man in this game. I mean, if this game stays close, he should be able to get whatever he wants. And I wouldn't surprise me if he got 80 fantasy points on Christmas. He's averaging nearly 38 minutes per game and is at 1.66 points per minute with a near 40% usage rate. These numbers are insane. He has great games pretty much every single night. And he had a 54-point game versus Sacramento last game. And that's pretty good when you can score 54 points and everyone's a little bit upset about that. I mean, that's pretty darn good. If most people get 54 points, you're jumping out of your seat. When James Harden scores 54 points, we're kind of a little disappointed. But if you just look at his game log, the past 10 games, 54, 69, 51, 53, 59, but 84, 80, 52, 57, 47. Most of the time he's going to get you 50 plus points, and I like the safety that James Harden presents us. Do I think he's an absolute lock on this slate? No, I don't think you have to spend all the way up for him, but if you want to, I have no problem with that. Sometimes I feel like we don't have to pay up for James Harden, and this is one of those slates I don't think you have to, because there's a lot of good options, but he definitely presents the highest ceiling on this slate. So definitely like James Harden if you want to use him. The only problem with using him would be is if this game gets out of hand, because they are playing the Warriors, and we know the Warriors are not a very good team. But we've seen situations where the Rockets are up 40 and James Harden is still out on the court without a care in the world. So I really don't worry too much about that. We still have a nice 229 point over-under, which is the second highest on the slate, and the Rockets have about 120 team total. So James Harden thinks he's a fantastic play if you want to spend up for him. Giannis, I'm not going to say too much about Giannis because I'd prefer to play James Harden, but the guy's absolutely insane. We know that. He's averaging 1.92 points per minute. That's insane, because 1.92 points per minute is the best in the league by far, and Harden, like I said, is only at 1.6, and I say only, but compared to Giannis, Giannis is on a whole nother level when it comes to the point per minute basis for fantasy purposes. And he's got about a 40% usage rate as well. Now, the only problem with Giannis is that his upside is capped most nights due to the fact that he doesn't play big minutes all the time because the Bucks tend to blow people out. But that shouldn't be the case here, as we have a nice 3-point spread. Problem is, it's a tough matchup, as Philly is one of the best defensive teams in the NBA right now, but I really don't care about matchups for Giannis. The only thing I really care about is if he's going to get a full complement of minutes. And I think he can do that versus Philly. There's really no one that can stop Giannis. I mean, the matchup, it's a bad matchup. I don't love it. But, if he's going to get a full complement of minutes, he should be fine here. It was a tough matchup versus LA, but the game stayed pretty close. And he had 64 fantasy points in 32 minutes. And if we just look at his minutes, so we had 31 minutes versus Indianapolis. They killed Indy. He only had 31 minutes only. That's actually not too bad for Giannis. 31 minutes, 63 fantasy points. Then versus New York, they blew New York out. Only 26 minutes. Still scored nearly 60 fantasy points. Not a lot of players can do that in only 26 minutes. Versus LA, 32 minutes, 64 points. Versus Dallas, competitive game, 34 minutes, 76 fantasy points. So when the game's competitive, he can have huge games. Blew Cleveland out, only saw 24 minutes, 44 fantasy points. That's still about 2 points per minute, but obviously if you're not going to get 30 plus minutes, you're not going to pay off your near 12K price tag. But then the one competitive game versus Orlando, we had 35 minutes, 68 fantasy points. So if the game's competitive, And I mean, if you look at the game log here, 46, 51, 54, that's not very good, but he also only played 26 minutes, 28 minutes, 22 minutes. You're not going to hit your ceiling at 11,000 if you're only playing 20-some minutes. But I do think this game can stay close, and despite the tough matchup, I think Giannis has like 70-point upside here. And if he gets 30-plus minutes, honestly, his floor is pretty much 65 fantasy points. So you got to like Giannis here. He does everything in the stat sheet: blocks, steals, assists, rebounds, points, you name it. He does anything. So Giannis, if you want to get a little bit different, you can definitely play him. I don't think he's going to be very high owned on this slate because I feel like everyone's going to flock to James Harden, and I don't blame you, or Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So Giannis might get a little bit under owned, and if you want to get a little bit different on this slate, I don't think Giannis is a bad play. All right, so we can talk about both Laker guys here, and I don't love either of them really, so I'm not going to let's just, in general, this game should be pretty good for fantasy. Not fantasy, should be a good game just to watch in general. Now, a lot of the guys are expensive in this game, and both are actually somewhat solid on defense. But we do have a 223-point total with a 1-point spread, so I do like that. I think this is going to be a fantastic game to watch if you're just an NBA fan and want to watch basketball. But like I said, both teams are pretty solid defensively. The Lakers rank 3rd. Clippers a little bit more vulnerable. They rank 13th. But this should be a good game. I think both are fine. We'll talk about LeBron first. So he's at 9,900, and anytime LeBron's below 10K, it feels like a steal to me. He's averaging 1.55 points per game, points per minute this season. 1.5 points per game would suck. 1.55 points per minute, averaging about 36 minutes per game. He's got a 32% usage rate. First game versus them this season, he had 18 points, 10 boards, 8 assists, and 36 minutes. He can flirt with a triple-double pretty much every single night, and he does. 12 boards, 11 assists, 21 points, 9, 9, 20, 13, 7, 32, 9, 12, 28. You pretty much have triple-double outside every single night with LeBron. And, the matchup's all right. He's going to see Kawhi Leonard here, but, LeBron and Kawhi should be going back and forth all game, so I think LeBron's fine. I like that he's 9,900. Seems a little bit too cheap. Anthony Davis at 10,100. I should mention both of these guys are questionable, but I think 5 minutes ago before I started the video, they were both expected to play in this game, which is nothing new. They were expected to play the whole time, so both are going to be out there. They're going to play full complement of minutes, and this game should be pretty competitive, so I do like that. And Anthony Davis, he actually finds himself in a pretty nice spot here, considering the Clippers are 21st versus big men, and they're pretty below average versus power forwards as well. He's averaging near 1.5 points per minute this season, 31% usage rate, pretty much similar numbers to LeBron, and 25 points. The first outing versus them, he had 25 points, 9 boards, 5 assists. And Anthony Davis, one of the best players in the NBA. I think they're both solid options. Now, obviously, you can't afford all 4 of these guys, so you're going to have to make some decisions here if you want to spend all the way up for someone. I would rank James Harden first, and then I'd honestly probably go like LeBron, Davis, Giannis, just from a price standpoint. So James Harden, obviously my favorite of the bunch, but he also comes with the highest price tag, and I really do like that price on LeBron. So I'm just going to list here. Joel Embiid. I'm sorry to talk about all these expensive guys, but again, I said I had extra time to make notes on all these guys, so just might be a little bit longer video, but I don't hate I don't hate Embiid here, as he is fairly priced versus Milwaukee in their bottom 10 versus centers. But I'm not totally sure if I see myself going there. There's nothing wrong with him at all. He's averaging 1.53 points per minute this year, 31% usage rate, pretty much similar numbers to LeBron and AD, and he's a little bit cheaper. But I do like and I also do like the pace-up spot for the Sixers here. Milwaukee plays the fastest pace of play in the league, while Philly is 21st. So I always like getting guys in pace-up spots. And I think Embiid's a pretty nice play here. I don't really care about the matchup with Embiid. He's pretty much matchup-proof. But if he's going to get 30-plus minutes in a competitive game, I think Embiid should be able to hit value here at 9,800. I'm not sure how owned he's going to be at this point. I don't know if I'd see a lot of people playing Embiid on this slate, because we have a lot of good players on this slate, but I think Embiid's a pretty solid option. You could also look at Jokic as a GPP pivot off of a guy like Embiid or LeBron or Davis, because I don't see him getting a lot of ownership. People might still have how he played in the beginning of the season back in the back of their minds, because he was pretty rough, but he's definitely turned it up a notch from his bad start. We know he presents his triple-double upside every single night. He just had one too. Yeah, versus Phoenix, I liked him. He had 31 minutes, had 12 boards, 10 assists, 22 points, 59 fantasy points, and the guy's been very good. If we just take a stroll through the game log, only saw 27 minutes versus the Lakers. It was a tough matchup, 37 points, but then 58, 51, 50, 70, 44, 43, 47, 56. Nikola Jokic has been very, very good, and I think he's a very good GPP option, because, again, I don't see a lot of people playing Jokic. Everyone's going to play AD. Everyone's going to play LeBron. There might be a lot more casuals playing on Christmas as well, because you see it in the NFL. Like week 1, a bunch of casuals are coming in to play DraftKings, and they don't really know the deep analytical research you can do on these players. So everyone's going to flock to these big name players, and I can see Jokic getting a little bit overlooked because Jokic hasn't been chalk in like a long time. So definitely like the matchup versus New Orleans as well, and they're just awful defensively. And they're also pretty below average versus centers. And they're also 5th in pace of play, while Denver is 27th. So we have a nice pace-up spot here, which I already said I love players in pace-up spots. Just presents more fantasy point opportunities. And this is a 9.5 point spread. So I will say that might be a little bit of concern here. And if it gets out of hand, obviously Jokic isn't going to see 30-plus minutes, which he'll more than likely not hit value if he doesn't get 30-plus minutes. So we're going to have to hope that the game stays a little bit close. So that could be a little bit of concern. But he is a GPP option for me. Probably wouldn't play him in cash games. But it's also the late game, too, if you want exposure to the late game. So I do like Nikola Jokic. I think he's a pretty solid play versus New Orleans. Then we'll finally skip someone in Siakam because he's not playing. But Russell Westbrook, 8,900. I think he's another really solid play. And again, I'm sorry about talking about all these guys, but there's just a lot to talk about. There's a lot of good plays on the Christmas slate, and that's for obvious reasons because obviously the NBA is going to want good viewership on such a big day like Christmas, so they're going to pack all the stars on one slate. So there's a lot of stars on this slate, so we're going to have to figure out which ones we like. But I do like the price of Russell Westbrook here. He's below 9K, and he presents us a lot of upside as well. And like I said with Harden, he's in an elite matchup versus Golden State. They're ranked 26th versus point guards, and they're just a very poor defensive team all around, and so is Houston. So this should be a pretty somewhat back-and-forth game. I'm just hoping Golden State can hang to let the Rockets players hit value. But he's been very, very good recently for the most part. 47 points in the last game versus Sacramento, 56, 60, 53, 40 is a little rough versus Orlando, but then 48, 51, 71, 56, 55. He's been pretty darn good, and he's also, near 3K cheaper than James Harden. So if you're not playing James Harden, I think it's probably in your best interest to play Russell Westbrook. You could play both, but it caps your upside a little bit. But I'm probably looking to get one of the two guys in my lineups for sure. And he's playing huge minutes as well. 40 minutes, 33, 40, 40. So minutes aren't a concern. He's averaging 1.34 points per minute, 32% usage rate. So I see no reason not to like Russ here. I think he's a fantastic play, and he should grade out as a pretty good point per dollar option compared to a lot of these guys up top. So definitely like Russell Westbrook quite a bit. Kawhi Leonard, you can run it back if you're playing like LeBron and Davis or just like one of the two, and you can run it back with Kawhi if you really want to stack this game for fantasy purposes. I just don't really see myself going with Kawhi. It's not a great matchup, but he did perform pretty well in the first matchup versus the Lakers. I believe he dropped 32 real-life points, but I don't see myself going with Kawhi, but he's a little cheap, but not a lot of interest there. So we're not going to talk about every single player in the slate. There are some guys I don't like, but there is just really top-heavy because of all the studs on this slate. Just going down some more. Kemba Walker, he's been screwing me lately. I don't know if Gordon Hayward's going to be back yet, but it really doesn't matter to me. I don't want to play Kemba. It's a bad matchup versus the Raptors anyway. Paul George, he's cheap at 7,900. I don't love it, though, when both he and Kawhi Leonard play. It's just, I really don't have too much interest, and it's not a good matchup versus the Lakers anyway. Do I think he can have a good game? Yeah, and he's also pretty cheap, but he's actually been pretty bad the past two games, 27 points and 22 points. But, yeah, I'm not really too interested in Paul George on this slate, but I do like the price dip he got because he got a big price dip. So he might grade out as a nice point per dollar option, but I'm just not sure if I see myself going there. Clint CAPELA, if you just want to stack up this Rockets game, I have no problem with that. He's at 7,500, and he's been pretty good this season. There's nothing not to like about Clint CAPELA. I mean, he's your solid 40-point guy with upside. 39 points in the last game, 42, 36, 48, 46, 29, 37, 34. 28 is a little rough, but before that, he was on a hot stretch. But Clint CAPELA, I think he gets you 40 points versus Golden State. So if you don't like guys at 7,500 that score 40 points, then I guess Clint CAPELA is not for you. But you can play big minutes around 40 minutes if the game's competitive. Golden State really doesn't present too much of a defensive hassle for CAPELA, so I don't mind him. I think he's a solid play. Not a core play, but I think he's solid. D'Angelo Russell on the opposite side of this game. So I actually think he is one of the stronger GPP plays on this slate because I'm hoping he actually was a little bit under the radar as well, because if we want to play all these Houston starters, well, there's a 10-point spread, so obviously they might not hit their absolute ceilings without this game staying close, and I would think D'Lo would make a good correlation play if you're stacking Houston to throw him on the other opposite side of this lineup, because if we need everyone to hit their ceilings on Houston, we're probably going to need Russell to have a big scoring night to keep this game close, and he's certainly capable of that. He's the main scorer on this team. In the past 3 games, he's actually been pretty solid with nice matchups that are fast-paced. He played Minnesota, good matchup, fast-paced. New Orleans, good matchup, fast-paced. Portland, good matchup, fast-paced. Played 30-plus minutes, had 45 points, 43, 42. It's another good matchup, fast-paced, again, versus Houston. I see no reason why he can't touch 50 points in this game. Rockets are playing at the 3rd fastest pace of play this season. They're also 10th worst defensively, and surprisingly, the one good spot the one spot they're good at defensively is point guards, which is a little weird. Earlier in the season, they were like number 1. Now they're down to number 9. But, D'Lo, he's a good player. He's going to shoot the ball a ton. Volume's never going to be an issue. He shot the ball 18 times, 20, 23. He's going to shoot 10 plus threes in this game. He's going to go to the free throw line. And, he's probably more than likely going to get you 45 plus points. It's 7,400, which I think is an excellent play. And he should be a little bit lower owned. He owns a 32% usage rate this season, 1.23 points per minute. So I see no reason why we can't look D'Angelo Russell's way in GPPs. I think he's a pretty solid option there. Serge Ibaka, he's fine. He's going to get big minutes, pretty good point per minute with no Siakam. Don't love him, though, versus Boston. I don't hate it either. Drew Holiday, if you just want the holiday season narrative there at the name, maybe, but hate the matchup versus Denver. I really don't see myself going with Drew Holiday. Jamal Murray, if you just want pieces of Denver versus New Orleans, I don't hate it. I'm not really one to play Jamal Murray because he's pretty hit or miss, but actually the 3 of the past 4 games have been very good for Jamal Murray. 41, 49, 18 sucks. But that was also versus LA. They're very good defensively. But then he had 46 versus Phoenix. I see no reason why he couldn't get 40-plus points again versus New Orleans. They ranked dead last versus point guards. They play at a fast pace. So Jamal Murray, on my GPP radar, not sure if I'd going to get there in cash games, but I wouldn't say he's a bad cash game play. I think he's actually pretty safe. So Jamal Murray, if he can keep this 40-point trend continuing, I think he's an okay play. Not a favorite play of mine, but I don't mind him. Fred VanVleet, he's fine in cash games. He's going to play big minutes. He's going to probably get you 40 points, so don't hate Fred VanVleet. Jaylen Brown, not sure if Gordon Hayward's going to play or not. He's questionable. We'll see, but if he's out, obviously guys like Tatum, Brown, Kemba all get boost. Harris, don't love Harris. Will Barton, he's just a little expensive, but it's a great matchup versus New Orleans. He's just a little hit or miss as well. So I really don't see myself going with Will Barton unless for some reason you want to stack this game. They're also at the 10:30 game, so if you want late game exposure and just to stack this up, you could certainly do so, but I really don't see myself paying $6,600 for Will Barton. Just think there's better options on this slate, point per dollar wise. So scrolling down a little bit here. We could look, well, I guess Draymond Green, if you want this, just stack up this game, you could certainly do so. He's not going to score a lot of points, but, he can do the rebounds, assists, steals, block. He does a little bit of everything. And actually, I think there's a contest on DraftKings for the Christmas slate. It's like stock something. They put the emphasis on the stock because they're going public. But if you get 20 plus blocks or steals in your lineup, you can split a prize of $50,000. And I got to thinking about it, like, well, that seems pretty hard, 20 plus steals and blocks, but I guess it's possible. So again, something you want to keep on your radar. Draymond Green's pretty good at steals and blocks, and obviously Giannis is too. So maybe if you want to try to get that prize of the 50,000, split that up, maybe you could look at guys like that. Something to think about. I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning of the video, but again, something to think about. I don't know if it's all the contests, but I know that's like one of the big contests. You like split 50K if you can get 20 plus steals or blocks in your lineup. So something to think about. Check it out if you want to. You can make lineups specifically just hunting for blocks and steals. Because, if the lineup doesn't score great at the end result, if you get the 20 plus blocks and steals, and depending on how many people split the prize, probably looking pretty good at a nice payoff. But ALEC BURKS here at 5,600. So Glenn Robinson got rolled out last night, so BURKS became a pretty solid play. And he balled out the last game, too. 48 points, 25 points, 8 assists, block, 3 steals. Then 40 points the game before that, and 34 points. So he's actually on a nice 3-game stretch. Again, these have been very good matchups. Portland, New Orleans, Minnesota, but good matchups continue here versus Houston. Now, Glenn Robinson is questionable to play, but if not, I definitely have a lot of interest in ALEC BURKS here. He gets an elite matchup versus Houston, who's 25th versus shooting guards and 29th versus small forwards. Fast-paced matchup, and it's a high total, too. And with Robinson off the court and all the other guys like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, all those guys, he's averaging over a point per minute and a 22% usage rate. So ALEC BURKS, I would think he'd become a very, very solid mid-range play if Glenn Robinson is, again, ruled out. Even if he's not, he's actually been pretty solid. So I do like ALEC BURKS here. Thinks he's a pretty solid mid-range play. MONTREZL HARRELL at 5,500. So don't love the matchup at all. Like, at all. This matchup sucks. Lakers are number 1 team versus opposing centers, but this is just a simple mispricing. If you look at his salaries just the past 10 games, 65, 63, 68, 67, 64, 64, 69, 61, 64, 66. You guys get it. He's all the way down to 5,500. Now, I'm not expecting a 40-point game out of MONTREZL here, but he doesn't need to get a 40-point game at this price tag. I actually think he's one of the better plays on this slate, just given the price. And the game is going to be very competitive, so he's going to have to be on the court and probably see 30-plus minutes in this one. Sometimes he doesn't see the huge minutes. He only saw 23 versus Phoenix, but that game got out of hand. Then 20 versus San Antonio, that game got out of hand. But if it's a close game, he's going to see about 30 minutes here. So, and he's actually been he's a 1.1 point per minute producer this season, which is very good. 24% usage rate when he's on the court. It's going to be a tight game, 1 point spread, very competitive. So, MONTREZL, I think he's a very, very good option on this slate. Grades out as a very good point per dollar option. And then you can also look at Damion Lee. If Glenn Robinson's again rolled out, he had a pretty good game last time out where he had 14 points, 7 boards, 3 assists in 28 minutes. The game before that, 35 minutes, 32 fantasy points. So you can definitely look his way just to get exposure to this game. I'd have no problem with going like Russell Westbrook and D'Lo, Damion Lee, ALEC Burks, something like that. Or maybe if you just go Burks and Lee, the cheaper options. No problem at all with that. Let's see, scrolling down a little bit. Gary Harris, he's at 5,100 going up against New Orleans. Now, trust me, it's never fun to play Gary Harris. He flashes upside every once in a while, but the guy's only averaging 0.66 points per minute this year. That's trash. That's terrible. Absolutely awful. He's going to play over 30 minutes, though. He does it every single night. 35, 34, 31, 34. Fantasy points, 15, 36, 22, 24. It's a little gross, but it's a great matchup versus New Orleans. Doesn't get much better than this. So I think he can trip and stumble his way into 20 fantasy points, and we will take it. So don't hate him as a cash game option, but at 5,100, it's a little expensive. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. If he was in that 4-5 range, I'd definitely have a lot of interest, but 51 makes me think about it a little bit. But on my radar, just as a lineup filler, I don't think he's the worst lineup filler in the world. Lonzo Ball, this price is sticking out to me at 4,500. He seems just a little bit too cheap here. I mean, especially for the way he's been playing recently. Not like it's been great, but 25 points, 32, 25, 25. Now, he actually drew the start in this game, last night versus Portland. But he got 2 quick fouls, and then they pulled him, and then he had 18 minutes. He only finished the game with 18 minutes, which I thought was a little odd, but he still had 25 fantasy points, which wasn't too bad. I mean, 7 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. He was very productive when he was in the game. Now, I don't know if he's going to draw the start again or not, but I would assume he's going to get more than 18 minutes on most nights. And at 4,500, I think he's actually a pretty solid value. Now, this is not a good matchup versus Denver, but again, he's really cheap. He's been about a point per minute this season, so I don't hate the idea of using Lonzo Ball here. I think he's an okay option. I think I skipped someone. Yeah, Paul Millsap. He's right above him at 4,600. I actually think he's a pretty solid play here. Millsap's been exactly 1 point per minute this season. He's going to see probably about 25, 27 minutes in this game. If it's competitive, it's a great matchup versus New Orleans, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Big pace-up spot. I think he can get you 25-plus fantasy points here. And at 4,600, we will take that all day. He's got 30-point upside. Did it versus New Orleans with 34 fantasy points. So I think Paul Millsap is a pretty solid play in this game for a fair price. And then just another lineup filler. These guys are pretty much just lineup fillers. I'm not going on my way to play Millsap, Lonzo Ball, or PJ Tucker. But again, if you got the salary that left, I don't hate these guys. Tucker, he's going to play huge minutes. Now, he's not a good point per minute option, but when you're on the court as much as he is, sometimes you just happen to have some pretty good fantasy days. He had 10 rebounds the last game, 4 assists, 3 steals, 5 points. That sounds like a pretty typical PJ Tucker game to me. Now, he's not going to do that good every single night. We've seen downside games, but like versus Phoenix, he only had 13 points. But 34, 27, 14, 33, 19, 37, 15, 40. Little hit or miss, but I think he can get you 25 points in this game versus Golden State. It's just going to be a fast-paced game, one of the best games of the night. If he's going to see close to 40 minutes, I don't see how he doesn't hit value at 4,400. So, again, another lineup filler that I have some interest in. Scoring down a little bit, CAULEY-STEIN. I don't love the matchup, but Houston's actually pretty good versus centers, and they're pretty good versus point guards. They suck versus the rest, but he's actually been pretty good recently. 32 points, 25, 23, 33. He's been a point per minute this season, which is pretty good. Actually had a couple games of seeing 30 minutes. Now, he's not usually a big minute guy, but if he can touch 30 minutes here in a good match, not a good matchup, but a good game environment, I don't see why he can't get 30 points. So at 4,200, I actually think he's a pretty solid play. Again, not going on a way to get these guys in, but they're decent lineup fillers at this point of this video. We're getting to the lineup filler part. Tice, he's not a bad play, but my favorite value, I guess, would be Daniel House. Now, I don't love it, but there's like not a lot of value options on this slate. So basically, we're just trying to find a guy that might get us 20 points. And I think Daniel House can do that. And when there's not a lot of good value, like obvious value options, the thing I like to do is just take a lineup filler on one of my favorite teams of the slate, in the Rockets. I definitely have a lot of interest in the Rockets. So House fits the bill here. He's going to play like 35 minutes tonight, maybe a little bit less, but anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes given the game's competitive. And I think he can trip and fall his way into 20 fantasy points. I mean, maybe he doesn't, but I think he can somehow get 20 fantasy points. The last game he was actually 4 for 8 from 3, so I like that he took a lot of shots there. That's surprising, but I liked it, so I'm not going to complain about the volume that he had the last game. But other than that, he's not going to do too much else. But maybe he picks up a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists, lucks his way into a block or steal, hits a couple threes, 20 fantasy points at 3,600. I'll take it on this slate. There's not a lot of good value options. So, again, you can't be too picky at this point because there's not a lot of good values. But maybe some injury news opens up. We'll see. But I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. Hope it was helpful. I feel like it was really long. Let's see how long this video was. Yeah, 25 minutes. This is my longest NBA video ever. Usually my NFL videos are very, very long because I could talk about NFL all day long. But yeah, it's going to be very long. But hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas. Hope you guys get everyone gets what they want. Hope you guys enjoy the games. If this video was helpful, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And I'll see you guys in the next video.